It's Japan, it's the early 1990s, and Fujitsu are in a pitched battle against rival NEC for the computer market. NEC's legendary PC-98 platform was a tough nut to crack, and Fujitsu's nascent FM Towns platform was struggling to compete. Fujitsu realised that games were a big PC seller, and NEC's profile in the gaming world had been raised by its PC Engine range of consoles. Although they didn't do especially well outside Japan and were eventually beaten by Nintendo and Sega, they were popular on their home turf. Fujitsu figured that by releasing a games console, they'd create another market and show their gaming credentials in one move. So they took the guts of their FM Towns platform and stuck it in a home-friendly case. And Fujitsu really did just take a PC and put it in a case. It's because of this that the FM Towns Marty is credited with a number of firsts. It was the first 32-bit console, technically kicking off the 5th generation. It was the first console designed around a CD drive rather than having an add-on or a special version. And it was the first console to be based around an Intel-powered PC. Yep, the FM Towns was powered by a 386 CPU, although actually a clone made by AMD rather than Intel, but the same thing for all intents and purposes. And so you could consider it the spiritual predecessor to the original Xbox, or even the current Xbox and PlayStation. So with all that great and advanced tech, the console must have been a huge success, right? Well, you probably know the answer to that, seeing as there's a good chance you've either never heard of it before or you've never actually seen one in person. The price for all that great technology was, well, a huge price. The console retailed at about 66,000 yen. That's about $670 at the time. Now that price is still cheaper than the 3DO when it launched, but it was nearly double the Saturn and PlayStation, which would appear on the scene a couple of years later. Even more importantly, it was vastly more expensive than the Super Nintendo and Mega Drive, which were the current home champions. So the Marty was a huge flop. Fujitsu lost a ton of money and became somewhat disenchanted with the console market. Before they left though, they gave it one more try, and the Marty 2 was released in 1994. It's just the original Marty, but it's in a rather fancy, in my opinion, grey colour, and it's got a yellow CD release button. There were rumours that it had a faster CPU or other enhancements, but it doesn't. It's exactly the same. Fujitsu released it straight into the open maw of the Sega-Sony battle for the 32-bit console era, and the Fujitsu board got cold feet and just voted to scrap the line entirely. Amusingly, they decided to do this despite obvious signs that people were interested in the console. This move was later used as an example and name for a Japanese business law. Called the Marty Law, it states that the only way to improve sales of something is to actually sell it. And that's fair enough. But that's not quite the end of the Marty story. Fujitsu gave the technology to its car audio arm, Fujitsu 10. They took the tech and, fittingly for a console that was responsible for so many firsts, they created the first in-car entertainment system. It could use mini screens, and it had a custom GPS. Audio and video could be piped to the other screens in the car, so you could show videos to your kids in the back seats. And this is pretty much the genesis of car entertainment systems. They also, I think rather wonderfully, called it the Car Marty. But, alas, the Marty finished its life like so many other failed Japanese consoles, joining the likes of the PC FX as a box to play hentai games. So, on the subject of the software. The Marty didn't have many exclusive releases, it just simply didn't sell enough consoles for that. But due to its FM Towns compatibility, it could play some games from that library. It wasn't compatible with all of them, it was lacking a hard drive, so games like Wing Commander 2, which needed to be installed, couldn't be played. Wing Commander 1 required a keyboard to enter your name, but due to the light actually having a keyboard port, it was playable. It also had a mouse port next to the controller port, so some of the mouse keys were usable. The Marty had 2 megs of memory, not a terrible amount for a console, but pushing the limit for PC games at the time. An expansion card was released, but it was rare and it actually slowed the console down. But it did mean you could play the rather wonderful port of Street Fighter 2. On the subject of ports, the Marty had some great arcade ports, including New Zealand Story, Bubble Bobble, Splatterhouse, and what I believe to be one of the best ports of Turbo Outrun. Some of the FM Towns games also required a floppy disk to run, either for saving or as a form of copy protection. The Marty did have a floppy drive, but it also tends to be one of the first things that go, and it's not easy to replace due to having a fairly unusual collector and requiring the Japanese free mode design. But if you stick to the CD-only games, and even excluding the hentai titles, you still have a fair choice. And there are a number of genuine gems in there. Other than the ones I've mentioned, there are some other great ports such as Afterburner, and also some non-ports like 4D driving, which is sort of like hard driving and came from EA. It's a shame the Marty didn't succeed. It was a capable console and could easily have competed with the rest of the 5th generation machines. If only Fujitsu had kept their cool and pushed on with the Marty 2, then the game's market could be very different. The Marty is pretty hard to get hold of. They do show up on eBay every now and again, and usually command around £200 to £400 unboxed, up to £1,000 boxed. We got asked for a Japanese auction site, and including postage, paid around £280 for it. As mentioned above, the floppy drive didn't work, and we needed to replace the belt, which you definitely have to do, but even that didn't solve the entire problem. We also had trouble reading CDs, but recapping the power board fixed that. Cap kits are available for it, but be aware there are 2 different manufacturers of the power board, which require different caps. The name will be silk screened on your board, so it's not hard to work out which. So, do we recommend the Marty? That's a big depends. If you're a collector, then yes, it's a fantastic piece of console history, and in our opinion, looks stunning. The games are hard to get hold of and pricey, but if you just want to test some, then well, the ISOs are around and there's zero copy protection. But if you're like us and you want to own the originals, just be aware that it's going to be expensive.